Our brains are wired for storytelling. It's a fundamental aspect of how we perceive and understand the world around us. Through storytelling, we connect, empathize, and make sense of our shared experiences, shaping our perspectives and fostering understanding. From ancient oral traditions to modern cinematic masterpieces, storytelling is a powerful tool that transcends time and culture. In this presentation, we'll explore how leveraging the power of storytelling through integrating varied sensory experiences into filmmaking techniques. Additionally, we will look at how leveraging global awards platforms such as the Oscars and BAFTA, the British Academy for Television and Arts, and its diversity initiative Elevate could serve as a pipeline for this representation. Through a brief analysis complemented with a stakeholder interview and 2 pieces of experimental media created specifically for this presentation. According to the World Health Organization, 50% of the world population have documented varied experiences of sight, sound, cognition, and/or mobility that require adaptive resources in order to most effectively navigate the world. Traditional film genres exclude a significant portion of the global population, perpetuating stereotypes and biases. There is a need for a genre and filmmaking techniques that authentically represent these diverse sensory experiences. The opportunity for positive impact lies in creating sensory experience inclusivity and representation as both a genre and a cache of filmmaking techniques. This would bridge the gap in representation, foster empathy, and promote social inclusion by targeting awards programs such as the Oscars and BAFTA as a pipeline for showcasing these DEIB filmmaking techniques. We can expedite change. Among our key findings, interviews highlighted the underrepresentation of diverse sensory experiences in cinema and the need for a genre and filmmaking techniques that could authentically convey varied sensory experiences. Secondary research emphasized the limitations of current solutions. Additionally, in our literature review, we found worthy to note that the predominant amount of writing and research in this area had been conducted in the late 80s, around the time that the American Disabilities Act was signed in 1990, with very little after the signing of the ADA. At this point, I'd like to share 6 minutes of an interview that we conducted on this topic with Father Greg Boyle of Homeboy Industries.
We never set out to, start a program, ever, not even a program. We never set out to do anything except to respond to what was right in front of us. So, the large view was, the as you say, the burying of kids, and then, what they would say, if only we had jobs. So we try to find jobs, and then we couldn't find enough jobs, and then we started, basically our social enterprises in a nutshell. And then tattoo removal. So we're always just responding to one thing after another. But people walk into our headquarters now and they say, how'd you think of this? And of course, nobody really thinks of these things. You back your way, you evolve your way into stuff. So that's kind of how it works. So I don't think, at no point, not even 3 days ago, would I have said, here's what I see, or I want it to become this now. I don't think I ever did that in 35 years. You're responding, you're dealing with what's right in front of you, you're actually talking to people, and so but I'm not sure anybody should set out to do something like that. I don't think. I'm a kind of opposed to the idea of starting a program. You know, so because maybe it'll become a program, maybe it doesn't. And so I'm always leery frankly, when people want to start a program, then I go, why? I mean, I never set out to start a program ever. So when you say respond rather than create, so people will be hesitant because they go, so you're just putting out fires, you're just responding. Why don't we create something that will, I get it, and it's language, but if you're creating something that comes only from the desire to create something, and again, ego is all involved in that, and you correctly pointed out the whole idea of you don't go to the margins to make a difference, you go to the margins so that the folks there make you different. Otherwise, and you burn out because you've allowed it to become about you, and it can't be about you. So if you go to the margins to make a difference, then it's about you. But if you go to the margins to be made different by them, then it's about us. And that's different. And that's how, you listen and you accompany and deeply who these folks are. And then you say, oh, okay, well, what if we tried this? I mean, it's in dialogue. Otherwise, we designed a program. And I go, yeah, if I had $1 for every time somebody did that, so this is also about process, and it's not just responding. It's more full, again, responding is not putting out fires or the whole thing about rescuing people who were, whatever that image is, in the river. You want to, who's throwing these people in the river? So you want to get to the roots. I get that too, but this is chew gum and walk at the same time. So yes, prevention, sometimes people, they can't do two things at once, and they kind of go, well, I'd rather do prevention than intervention. And I go, okay, but if we diss intervention, we lose sight of the fact that this population will always have more influence on the younger kids than we could ever have. So if you're not simultaneously working with both groups, you're in fact undercutting your best efforts at in prevention. So, so it's not just putting out fires, it's listening, it's honoring, it's exquisitely mutual. People are inhabiting their, dignity and nobility together, but it's mainly about community, because if you start a program, if you create a program, the chances are high that you're going to create the DMV of programs, and it's going to be about, and this is what happens in the country. Most programs are, for anger management, see window 49. It's like the DMV, and it's about delivery of services and not the creation of a community. And what's the secret sauce of Homeboy? Community. It's a community of cherished belonging. That's the secret sauce. And that creation of cherished belonging is the primary thing. We deliver all those services, but they're secondary to the creation of a community of cherished belonging. Does that make sense?
Other stakeholders that we interviewed, and many ultimately participated in our design lab with us, were filmmakers on the production side, actors from under or non represented sensory diverse populations, advocacy groups for varied abilities, audience members who were interested in engaging in sensory inclusive films, as well as funders who would be interested in contributing to such social enterprise. As we looked around at the solution landscape, we saw a lot of technologies that we could draw from for this first person perspective in filmmaking and as a genre. For example, combining immersive soundscapes, tactile feedback, diverse casting. We also explored intersections with spatial audio, haptic feedback, VR, AR, BCIs, and AI driven contact adaptation for more inclusive cinematic experiences. While we were evaluating the solution landscape, we found a lot to draw from, but also noticed that really nothing was being comprised or architected together in order to convey varied sight, sound, cognition, mobility in filmmaking technique or genre. This further inspired us to pull together our design criteria that embodies authentic representation, focuses on emotional engagement, evaluated for financial viability, as well as industry distribution, which is where the idea of tying this to awards platforms. Everyone experiences sight, sound, cognition, and mobility uniquely, yet there's little representation of this variation or the sensory strategies we employ to navigate our world. What if media deliberately incorporated these strategies, these everyday life hacks? Could it make transitions in our sensory experience less disruptive? Would it empower us further? Would we stand in awe rather than in fear or pity of how we each navigate our challenges? For example, the Kardashian family has a media following that is comprised of over 1 billion people. This is roughly equal to 1/8 of the world's population. What if media inherently and purposely leveraged this reach and integrated each of our sensory strategies, each of our life hacks accordingly? In addition to keeping our project aligned with the design criteria, we further looked into how to keep it an iterative design, meaning how could we incorporate feedback from the users through testing, and also contextual inquiry and how our interviews could focus on the user's needs within their own environments. We also moved towards a participatory design where users were involved throughout the entire design process. We kept our introduction of both the design concept and the prototypes very simple, just through the introduction of films that used similar ideas such as The Shape of Water, Memento, and A Quiet Place. Our design lab plan built from these excerpts from existing cinema and included interviews of professionals with varied sight, sound, cognition, and mobility, where they discussed what it was like to navigate in their everyday lives. Our assignment to our lab participants was to go home and film themselves doing something around their home with one sense muted: their sight, their sound, their cognition, or mobility. What I'd like to share with you is a few minutes of footage of our design lab participants who either had sight impairments or muted their sight. The most significantly paradigm shifting takeaway that we had from the interviews, from the research, from the design lab is the notion of cherished community and the degree to which this needs to be such a deeply collaborative endeavor every step of the way. With that in mind, I'd like to share with you a few minutes of experimental footage that we created based on the outcomes of our design lab for sight, sound, cognition, and mobility variants.